The scandal surrounding that woman quickly became the main topic at the resort. Beneath the staff's outward composure lay tension, palpable in every movement. She learned that the rival's past deals were dubious, and that her influence was built on carefully concealed compromises. These details began surfacing at the most inconvenient moments, shattering the image of reliability everyone had taken for granted. She watched from the sidelines, not interfering directly, yet understanding that her silence now carried weight. He appeared differently, like the burden he had borne for too long was starting to crack. His presence near her was again charged with tense sincerity, and she felt that he sought in her not only support, but confirmation that a possible choice was correct. The resort no longer felt like a place of leisure. It had become a stage where every step was part of a strategy. She observed positions shifting, confidence giving way to nervousness, former stability dissolving into chaos. Within this chaos, she felt a strange advantage. She was bound by no obligations other than her own emotions. Yet a new risk had emerged. Her closeness to him had become too obvious, attracting unwanted attention. She sensed that she could become a convenient target if the situation spiraled out of control. The thought that she might be used as a distraction or a sacrificial pawn was the first to make her consider leaving immediately. But he, as if sensing her hesitation, took a step that altered the balance of power. Through his actions, he made it clear that he was no longer willing to hide behind other people's decisions. And that unspoken promise made her stay, knowing that the most dangerous and decisive stage of this story was about to unfold. Her decision to stay surprised her most of all. She understood that there was now almost no turning back, and every new morning at the resort brought her closer to a resolution. He became more open in his actions, as if an internal choice had already been made but not yet announced to the world. She felt it in the way he no longer avoided appearing together, how he stopped hiding his attachment behind business pretenses. Meanwhile, pressure from his surroundings intensified. Family members, lawyers, and intermediaries appeared at the resort more frequently, turning it into a place of negotiations and hidden conflicts. She began to grasp the scale of what was happening and how deeply he was entangled in obligations he could not easily abandon. She learned that the scandal surrounding the other woman jeopardized not only the deal, but the family's entire reputation. In this context, his connection with her was seen as a risky, yet potentially salvaging move, capable of altering public opinion. The thought frightened her most. She did not want to be an instrument, even if their feelings were real. He increasingly sought seclusion with her, as if afraid that circumstances might separate them at any moment. She allowed this closeness to exist, but remained cautious within herself. She understood that the truth, slowly surfacing, could be devastating for all. It was then that she received indirect confirmation that the infidelity she had suspected had indeed occurred. It was not a confession, but a chain of facts, coincidences, and glances that formed a painful picture. She felt that trust had been irreparably undermined, and that love now required not blind faith, but a complex, adult choice she was not yet ready to make. The realization of the betrayal did not strike her like an explosion. Rather, it unfolded slowly, a viscous clarity settling in. She no longer sought confirmations, because within her, everything had already aligned into a logical and painfully coherent sequence. The resort continued to bustle with noise and brightness, but to her, it seemed drained of color, a mere backdrop behind which fatigue lurked. She began to distance herself even more, not out of a desire to punish, but out of necessity to preserve the remnants of herself. He sensed it and responded with unease, as if he understood he was losing something truly vital. His attempts to draw closer seemed genuine, but belated. She could no longer forget what she had seen and understood, even if part of her still reached for him. Meanwhile, the events surrounding the deal accelerated. The scandal gathered momentum, and the previous confidence of his circle turned into panic. She found herself in the spotlight more than she wished. She was perceived as the cause of his instability, a factor disrupting the accustomed order. This pressure intensified her inner conflict and nudged her toward thoughts of a final departure. She began preparing to leave, quietly, without announcement. In that silent decision, there was more pain than in any explanation. She felt that if she stayed, she would dissolve entirely into other people's intrigues, losing the right to her own story. Yet at that moment, a sharp turn occurred. He made a choice not aimed at preserving reputation or advantage, but at dismantling old schemes. The move was too bold and dangerous to be a game. She realized that what came next could no longer be controlled, and ahead lay either liberation or total collapse. His action shocked her because no one had expected someone to sever ties with the past so abruptly. The resort, which had seemed a safe haven, suddenly became a battlefield of ambitions and passions. She watched as those around reacted to his choice. Astonishment, indignation, envy emotions entwined into a dense knot of tension. He no longer tried to explain himself. His actions spoke louder than words, and she felt as if she now stood on the edge of trust, where a single moment could determine everything. She saw him free himself from old obligations, yet expose his most vulnerable sides. His gaze and movements carried determination and fear in equal measure. She could not remain passive. Being at the resort had become a test, and she chose to engage in the game not merely as an observer. She began to act, cautiously influencing conversations, guiding situations subtly. Her interventions were almost imperceptible to most, but to him, they became an unexpected support he dared not ask for. Her inner conflict intensified. On one hand, the desire to retreat and preserve herself. On the other, the attraction that had now become conscious, demanding courage. She realized that the bond formed in those early days had transformed into a force capable of resisting any intrigue. Yet no one understood that this step would open the way to unforeseen consequences. Old connections, long-hidden agreements, and secrets began surfacing, creating both new obstacles and new opportunities. And though danger was real, for the first time she felt that the outcome could depend not only on the will of others, but on their joint decision. After his decisive step, the resort became a place of constant tension. Each morning brought fresh rumors and unexpected encounters, as if life itself were testing their resilience. She sensed that every movement, every glance, every smile had become part of a complex pattern woven by fate. He no longer concealed his emotions. In moments of solitude on the beach, she saw in his eyes a mixture of relief and anxiety, as if he simultaneously rejoiced in freedom and feared the consequences. She shared with him her fears and doubts, the anxieties she had previously admitted to no one. He responded not with words, but with actions, care, and attention that could not be overlooked. Yet, calm was an illusion. The scandal around the woman escalated, drawing in local media, investors, and even neighboring resorts. Her role in the events became increasingly visible, and she began to realize that her presence was no longer merely a personal choice. It was a factor shaping the fates of others. This weighed on her, yet also awakened a determination to act wisely and cautiously. One evening, as the sun dyed the sea in fiery hues, she saw the woman appear on the beach again, but this time, her confidence was shaken. Fear and surprise flickered in her eyes, as if she had realized, for the first time, that control had slipped away. It was then that she understood. The game that had begun, with light flirtation and hidden intrigues, had become a true battle for love, influence, and freedom. For the first time, she tasted the power that comes not only from love, but from skillfully navigating circumstances. While remaining true to oneself, in the following days, the atmosphere at the resort reached a boiling point. New rumors mixed with old, and casual witnesses created their own versions of events. Every glance, every movement on the beach seemed like a signal to decode. She felt that the attention on them was no longer personal. It had become public. He was near her more often, yet his presence now felt both protective and challenging. She saw in his eyes not only emotions, but responsibility for consequences. Their intimacy was no longer simple passion. It had evolved into a strategy, where reason and feeling were entwined in a single chain. She spoke of her anxieties, and he responded through actions, touches, walks, quiet moments at sunset. The storm was not only external. The scandal surrounding the woman intensified. New documents surfaced, questioning her reputation and financial credibility. She realized it was an opportunity, but a dangerous one. Any misstep could destroy everything painstakingly built. She began acting subtly, influencing those around her, shaping situations that gradually shifted the balance. She felt a power she had never possessed before, now concentrated in her hands. He noticed this and trusted her, as if for the first time, truly. It was then that the first major turning point occurred. Their joint actions led to an open confrontation with the woman. Before all the resort guests, amidst luxury and sunlight, an invisible struggle unfolded. Stakes impossibly high, consequences unpredictable. She realized for the first time that their love had already become part of a larger game, one from which there was no simple exit,